The only reason I would consider the MacBook Air over the MacBook Pros would be better battery life. Good people, this is the 2021 MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro chip. Now, I've been exclusively editing all of my Hardware Canucks videos on this laptop. It's been the primary workhorse for all of the videos. It's been an incredible machine. I mean, all of my 4K footage, I edit all my photos. I take this with me everywhere I go, coffee shops, airplanes. I get a lot of work done. It's literally like the best laptop that I've probably used for almost a year and 8 months, I guess, ever since this came out. What I love about this laptop is that I can take this with me anywhere I go and start editing videos without the need of an external power source. So the performance on battery is exactly the same that I get when I have it plugged in, which is great. I still can't happen to find that on Windows laptops, which is unfortunate, but that's not the point of this video, because I'm actually switching from this laptop to the new 15-inch MacBook Air. This is something that recently Apple dropped with the M2 Pro chip. No, the M2 Pro chip. No, the M2 chip. Too many chips. This is the base model. It's got literally 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gigabyte SSD. Now you might be asking yourselves, Eber, what are you doing? Like, you're obviously gonna lose on performance compared to your M1 Pro MacBook Pro, but I've got a reason for this, guys. You see, I recently switched my entire editing setup to the Mac Studio with the M2 Ultra chip, and the performance has been phenomenal. I think I'm in love with this machine. It's been great. I love editing videos, and it also kind of cleans up my space quite well. And because I spend the majority of my time here at the office making content, I don't necessarily use the MacBook Pro for editing. All I use it for is just email work and doing admin stuff for the channel, so I don't need all that power, which is why I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to explore the MacBook Air as strictly a productivity laptop and see if it's actually worth the money. First, we gotta unbox this thing, transfer all the content from the MacBook Pro, and see how long that takes. So let's get to it. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Storage. You see, I wasn't prepared for this. Because my MacBook Pro had a 1 terabyte SSD and it was already filling up with just 2 projects stored locally. So clearly I wasn't able to transfer everything to the MacBook Air. And that's completely okay, because I'm gonna be using this to, respond to emails, do scripting work, researching for the channel, for projects, and also maybe try editing some Instagram reels to see how far I can push the M2. I did run a quick speed test to see how it compares to my 13-inch MacBook Air M2 with a 1 terabyte SSD. And yes, you are sacrificing on a bit of performance, but for the average consumer, I don't think it really matters. That being said, 256 gigabytes for a base spec is absolutely unacceptable for a laptop in 2023. If you look at the competition, notably with Windows laptops, you can get a terabyte of SSD with 2 to 3 times more performance for the same price as the base spec MacBook Air. I mean, a few examples that come to my mind is the XPS 15 and the Lenovo Slim 7. So let's just sign a petition to Apple to bump up the storage for the base spec next time. It's been about 3 months since I've switched over to the MacBook Air 15, and the best way to describe this laptop is by taking the 13-inch Air and stretching the chassis to fit a 15-inch display and a slightly bigger battery. Everything in terms of the design stays pretty much the same. It's still got that super sleek design, just at 0.45 inches thin. It weighs just a tad more than the 13-inch Air, but you won't really notice the weight difference unless you bring the 16-inch MacBook Pro into the equation. This is one of the thinnest 15-inch laptops that I've ever got my hands on. And yes, it is still thinner than the XPS 15 and the Slim 7 from Lenovo. I've been dealing this for a few months, and so far, my experience has been pretty good, with a few minor hiccups, which I'll get to in a moment. The build quality is, as always, top-notch, but that's pretty much what you should anticipate when you pick up an Apple product. I appreciate the little details, like being able to open the lid with just one finger, and then hearing that satisfying snap when the magnetic lid closes. it just feels good in general. Now, most people who are shopping around for a MacBook Air are most likely going to explore the idea of getting a bigger display. I mean, look at smartphones in general over the past decade. Everyone just loves bigger screens. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people love their 13-inch M2 Air, and it's still the laptop that I would take with me when I'm traveling abroad. But having used the 15-inch Air, I get it. You just feel more productive when you're working with a larger canvas, because that itself leads to consuming content in an immersive manner. Multitasking is another bonus. I was comfortably able to have multiple windows open side by side, which made my tasks like research, a bit of creative work, and just emailing a breeze. You don't feel as crammed as the 13-inch Air. And for me, the transition from my 16-inch MacBook Pro was pretty seamless, although that did come with a few trade-offs like the lack of ProMotion or 120Hz refresh rate. It took me some time to get used to the 60Hz panel, but you also sacrifice a bit on contrast ratios since the black levels on the Pro's mini LED display is deeper compared to the LCD panel on the Air. For the average consumer, that doesn't really matter since you're not gonna look at Excel sheets or PowerPoint documents or YouTube videos and diagnose why are the colors so off? Because it's really not the case, guys. This is a beautiful screen with an awesome 16:10 aspect ratio. I had a lot of fun editing some of my own projects in Lightroom. It's sharp and just more than enough for everyday tasks. As for the notch, well, it's a notch. You'll get used to it pretty quickly. This is also one of the brightest displays that you can find on a 15-inch thin and light laptop. My sample was able to sustain a peak output of around 510 nits, which is surprisingly 80 nits brighter than my 13-inch M2 Air. So I guess that's another bonus if you're shopping around between the 13 and the 15 Air.
All right, guys, so change of scenery. I just want to test the webcam quality on the MacBook Air 15, and as you can tell, it's really great quality. It's a 1080p sensor, and it's pretty similar to the Pro 16 and the Air 13. So again, you're getting a great quality webcam from this laptop. So if you're in the middle of nowhere or outside taking meetings, you're going to be completely fine. I've got traffic going around locally here, so it does a really good job picking up my vocals. So yeah, good stuff, Apple. Now, I want to transition it to the speakers on the MacBook Air 15. So Apple has actually added 2 more speakers on the 15 versus the 13. So with the 13, you're getting a quad speaker system, and with the 15, it's actually a total of 6 speakers. And the end result is actually noticeable. It's more immersive. I did my back-to-back comparison between the 2 laptops, and it sounds deeper. So for strictly entertainment purposes, this laptop does a really good job. It's not as louder or crispier compared to the Pro 16 and the 14 because those laptops come with front-facing speakers for better sound projection. But still, it's just remarkable to see how Apple has engineered a good sounding system on a super thin and light laptop.
The keyboard layout is essentially the same on all MacBooks, whether you're looking to get the 13-inch or a 15-inch Air, or even the Pro 14 or Pro 16. It's very sleek with an insanely fast Touch ID sensor that syncs up really well with Apple Pay, so if I'm making online purchases, it's another added layer of security, which I like. The keys also exhibit good feedback while maintaining shorter travel, and the LED backlighting is brighter and user adjustable through the operating system. I wouldn't say it's the best keyboard for a laptop, but for note-taking and general use, this will get the job done. And when you pair that with this massive and smooth and responsive trackpad, you're in for a treat. It almost feels like you're in sync with the OS when taking advantage of gesture controls and just dragging tabs within the desktop. Windows laptops still have a lot of catching up to do in that regard. Now, the port situation is pretty identical to the 13-inch Air. It's not a lot, especially if you plug in a bunch of things. I had to adapt to a different workflow in order to connect all of my accessories. For instance, if I needed to offset media from my SD card or plug in an external display over HDMI, I had to rely on an external dongle, which is an extra thing to carry around. The MacBook Air has always been known to have the least amount of ports, but that's the trade-off that you get when you get a package that's just really thin. You have to compromise on something. I still appreciate the inclusion of MagSafe charging. It's also quick and safe from accidental pulls, and Apple also includes the 35-watt dual-port compact power adapter with the base model, unlike the 30 watts single USB-C brick that comes with the 13-inch base. So you can charge your phone or other accessories at the same time, which is really convenient. Another added feature to the 15-inch Air is a bigger battery because you're working with a bigger chassis. Apple did extend the size from 52.6 watt-hours to 66.5 watt-hours, and let me tell you, it is a noticeable difference in screen on time. Compared to my MacBook Pro 16, I was able to get almost 6 extra hours on a single charge, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Although that does make sense given how power efficient the M2 chip is when compared to the M1 Pro. It draws way less power, so naturally you're expected to get better battery life. Compared to my 13-inch Air, I got around 45 minutes more runtime on our usual light load test, which is still pretty significant. Even under moderate tasks like watching 4K YouTube videos and doing a bunch of other stuff, you're getting a nice bump compared to the 13-inch Air. Now, what's the performance like on the 15-inch Air? Well, I went into this thinking that it would be similar to the 13-inch M2 Air since they share the exact same chip, which includes the 8-core CPU and the 10-core GPU. By the way, that's the standard on the 15-inch model, unlike the 13-inch that offers the 8-core GPU on the base model. Now, for my everyday productivity-focused tasks like emailing and watching videos, the M2 Air performs really well. I had no hiccups except for pushing 50 plus tabs in Chrome since that 8 gigabytes of unified memory is shared between the CPU and the GPU, and it's just not enough. So if you're that type of person holding on to those infinite number of tabs, this isn't gonna do the trick. Even in Lightroom, I did notice some sluggish performance compared to my MacBook Pro. Zooming into raw photos with my LUTs applied takes a few seconds to catch up. The new denoise function also takes some extra time to process. If you're gonna be pushing this laptop beyond light workloads, I would highly consider upgrading to the 16 gigabyte or 24 gigabyte spec. Unfortunately, you can't upgrade the components by yourself since everything is soldered onto the motherboard, and yeah, that's the Apple way. That being said, I did notice something interesting when I ran my usual suite of benchmarks. The 15-inch Air was noticeably faster in multi-core and single-core performance when compared to the 13-inch Air, despite them sharing the same chip. Cinebench R23 showed some really good improvements in both MC and SC runs. I also noticed the same trend with our Blender test. I mean, saving almost 3 minutes of rendering time is pretty wild. So what is happening here? Well, it turns out the bigger chassis contributes to better passive cooling, which then translates to lower temperatures, resulting in higher clock speeds. So you get slightly faster performance. But that ultimately gets bottlenecked with the 256 gigabyte single NAND SSD. That affects the overall user experience in Lightroom and other applications that write a lot of data onto the drive. You can see the difference compared to the 1 terabyte SSD on my 13-inch Air. So that's a story with the 15-inch MacBook Air. Did I have a great time using this laptop? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it was super light and was pretty capable for all of my modern tasks. No, in a sense that I had to come up with a lot of workarounds considering the limitations this base model offers. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, 256 gigabytes is not enough. You would be surprised how fast that would fill up in 6 to 8 months or just in a year. It's just not fair for consumers in 2023. Apple wants you to think that you're getting a great deal at $12.99, but they really want you to spend more money in order to get a better experience. That plus also the lack of ports was a pretty big deal for me personally because I just don't like plugging in dongles. Now my ideal spec would be 16 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD, and that is already sitting at around $1,900, which is just bananas. You see, for that kind of money, I would actually look into Apple's certified refurbished program and pick up this awesome 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 Pro chip and half a terabyte SSD. I mean, come on, $16.99 is a steal for that laptop. Or if you want a bigger display, the 16-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro that I was using is like $30 more, and I think it's a phenomenal machine for that price. You see, the only reason I would consider the MacBook Air over the MacBook Pros would be better battery life. It is significantly better, guys. And if that's your top priority, well, I guess there's no need to look elsewhere. On that note, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're able to take away everything that you needed to know about this 15-inch MacBook Air from Apple. Let us know what you guys think about in the comments. I'm Eber with Hardware Canucks. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Also, it's time for me to switch back to the MacBook Pro because I can't deal with the storage, man. I just can't.